goal is that we adhere to all, management of traffic plans that typically will be partnered with local communities to make sure that, what are the, like you talked about the weight band, like we figure that into the schedule as a, schedule risk item. But directly to address your question about like damage to roads, our contractors will be responsible as part of this project to repair damage to roads caused by construction.
Is that like a third party that views that and says, yes, this is damaged by you guys, or is it like the contractor says, yeah, that wasn't us? Or how does that get regulated, or is there township board or our patrolman get to deem if something is damaged, or is it a,
So
he said, she said type thing?
yeah, so what I have seen in the past is that there'll be a survey of the road condition before construction.
So baseline, and then we're looking there.
That's right.
If there's damage from that point, and then.
You got it.
Just pertaining to the construction, so as you come in, will the landowners be provided a copy of the SWIP as it impacts the land, the BMPs that are gonna be in place, how you're gonna control your erosion and runoff, what services or what utilities are going to be crossing the property, just kind of the overall plan and layout, and then when it comes to that work, you're using contractors. Again, kind of reverting back to his question, is the Public Service Commission then going to be overseeing your roles and responsibilities as a builder of this line, or are you utilizing somebody else?
I can address that. Yeah, so there's a lot to that. So starting on the front end, affected landowners within the construction footprint, I don't see any reason why we would not be able to communicate what the stormwater pollution prevention plan looks like in the BMPs that we are using in that respective area. To answer your first question, it'll be evident by the silt fences or bales. I mean, there's a whole bunch of technology that these folks, our contractors, use. Expanding on kind of like the accountability side of things, I think was to maybe summarize the latter part of your question.
Yeah.
Typically, the contractors will hire a third party, if it's environmental and there's like a speciation concern, like anything associated with that, they'll have environmental people. And a lot of times one of their side jobs is SWIP compliance. There's a couple different delivery platforms on that. That can be like a complete third party environmental entity making sure that we are adhering to stormwater pollution prevention plan. That will be hired either by the construction manager, my organization, or from, by the contractor as well. It will be typically it's third party, just because the guys that build it, or they like to build it, and the folks that are acutely aware of like erosion prevention, mitigation, that they're specialists in that. So we kind of have a division there to not have any sort of conflict. The accountability side of things, I'd have to think a little bit deeper about like what the actual paperwork mechanics look like. I am used to, the field-based construction manager who would not be an employee of the.
I can speak to it.
Okay.
I guess for the specifics for you, part of the CPCN process, when we get, assuming we get issued a permit to construct, we do have to, as he talked about a third party, there is a third party process where we have to compensate. The Public Service Commission has their own independent environmental monitor that does watch everything, be it from the wetland impacts to the stormwater management. They also have an independent agricultural inspector that is also, the developers have to pay for that, but they're not ours, it's for the PDSC. They are the ones that control that. On top of that, we, like he said, if the construction, we will have our own internal crews also watching all disturbance, making sure we're following our stormwater pollution plans, erosion control plans.
Can you share this with? I've never had anybody ask me that. But
It is publicly available. It's not the easiest thing to find. So I mean, like you said, we can probably work with people to get a copy of it if you need to see it. They are usually very big documents with the sheet maps, but you can focus in on your land and print off the sheet maps that you would be concerned with. Yep.
Because they're gonna have to address each policy.
Yep.
It should be
Yep.
directly.
It's everything, like,
correct.
we identify where the disturbance will be, what BMPs will be on it, those will be on the map before ground disturbance.
Are future data centers part of like the projection of the increased need? Is that factored in of the data centers that will be?
Yeah, so as part of the original study that they performed at the time, no, these data centers were not part of that increased demand. That increased demand was forecasted based on the expected increase due to electrification, meaning conversion of or switching from thermal or like gas heating to electric heat, or using electricity to cool homes, or using electricity for transportation. And then I think the lady in pink over there had
Hi,
no invitation.
this is a multi-state project. Does it fall under national, or is this strictly state? I'm not familiar with grid lines. I didn't look it up before I got here, so I just looked up Maribel.
So, I'm not sure exactly what you mean, could you be a little more specific?
Like, would the project, the Maribel
Mhm.
project, fall under the federal level or state level?
So-
Because it's a multi-state,
Sure, sure.
and national rules are different. And dealing with Vernon County with failed government projects, we can look to Lafarge with the dam
Mhm.
that was built in the 80s. I'm just wondering, all of a sudden they were going to pull the pin and go, this is a national project, state,
Okay.
you don't have any jurisdiction any longer. Because
Sure.
a lot of rules have changed within the last several months
Okay.
for guidelines about environmental protection
Mhm.
and things like that. So I'm just wanting to know legally what this project is. Is it a national project or is it a state project?
So,
Because if it falls apart, like Joe was saying, technology is changing rapidly, who's going to foot the bill?
so this project is considered an MVP, a multi-value project
Okay?
by MISO. And MISO is governed largely by the tariff that it has. And that's largely through FERC, which is a federal agency.
Okay.
Now, FERC has generally granted the siting rights to the states. There is a situation where they could come in and do it. I'm not aware of any time that they actually have.
Okay.
So again, as I was saying before, never say never. I don't know of any time that it's occurred. And I haven't heard anybody talk about that. But to get more specific for your question, there are some federal permits that we'll need to get at the river crossing. That will be through the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. They have to issue that permit. There's Army Corps permits. But by and large, the biggest permits are state. So Wisconsin is the CPCN, the Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity. Is it needed? If it's needed, where do you put it? In Minnesota, that's a certificate of need and the route permit. And basic same questions for those two. And since it is crossing the state, each permit will essentially have a condition saying that if it doesn't get permitted in the other state, it's not permitted here. That's very common in projects like this that cross state lines. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you. I'm a little more into it. And it's just like, I just been looking at Mark, I'm highly suspicious of MISO, because they're taking two of the poorest counties, and least poorest populated counties in the state, and they're going right through both of them. So, it's just like Mark said, the airport military base, you would think logically, that would be the most protected areas where, infrastructure would be placed, rather than one of the once you lose it, you'll never get back type situation. And I do, remember Lafarge, so, the dam going in, dam going out, not our problem. All your houses are raised, bye, good luck, see ya, and everybody backs away. That was a federal project, so, I don't know. So, thank you, though.
I have a two-part question kind of related to that. In the beginning of the presentation, it said that MISO's preferred solution are the 7765 towers. How can we find out what their other solutions they were considering were?
Yeah, so, I mean, as part of the planning process, when they're doing that assessment, they do look at various alternatives. Specific to you, you're asking, you know, where can you see all of that? All of that's captured in their what's called the MTEP report. For this particular set of projects, it was part of MTEP 24. MTEP, oh, I'm sorry, I'm throwing around an
How do you
acronym.
spell MTEF? What
Yeah,
is?
it's an acronym, and I apologize for that. It stands for, it's an acronym within the acronym. Because the M stands for MISO, and MISO is an acronym, so I apologize for that. But, so it's the MISO Transmission Expansion Plan, and so it's MTEP. And then you're specifically looking for the one associated with the year of 2024, because that's the year it was approved by the board.
Okay, and the second part of it is, what is the relationship? Can you describe the relationship between MISO, Grid Alliance, and Dairyland? I mean, are Dairyland and Grid Alliance just like have to do what MISO says, or what is the relationship?
Sure. So MISO is a membership-driven organization. So you know, Dairyland and Grid Alliance Heartland are members of MISO, but they are, as part of MISO, as part of being a member of MISO, both Grid Alliance and Dairyland have signed a transmission owners agreement, and within that, that spells out kind of the roles and responsibilities of who can do what and what relationship, you know, kind of codifies the relationship between MISO and the individual transmission owners that are members of MISO.
So did Dairyland and Grid Alliance like get to vote? Like, yeah, we like this project. Let's go with this. I mean, did you guys get to vote on that number 24 and help what was the preferred solution, or no?
No, MISO or Dairyland and Grid Alliance do not get to vote.
Okay, I wasn't sure how that worked.
Yeah, ultimately, you know, who decides, MISO has a board of directors who will formally approve expansion plans like this. Dairyland and Grid Alliance and many other transmission owners and other members of the utility industry participate in stakeholder, what they call stakeholder meetings, where they discuss and provide input and provide comments and try to, you know, either, you know, if they're seeing something, they kind of go, oh, could you do it this way or that way, or, you know, provide, you know, different types of comments and suggestions to improve the plan throughout the process.
Okay, thank you.
You can learn more to it at misoenergy.org. That website to learn more about MISO.
Sorry.
I actually have two questions, if I may. Sorry. First of all, thank you all for coming here. I know it's difficult for you guys to take time away from your family members, spouses, children, grandchildren, you know, even pets. So we appreciate that. So, my first question though is, this transmission line, how much is driven on a percentage base, strictly due to the decommissioning of power plants versus the actual new usage?
Yes. So I can't answer that one, because that's not something that's necessarily been calculated. What I can say about it, we could look at like exactly how many plants are being assumed to be decommissioned. That's one of the assumptions in the overall future projections, is how much actually is being retired, and then also how much is being built into the future as well. But you know, to your exact question of how the percentages, no, I don't know that off the top of my head.
Okay. Would you say there's a correlation between all the decommissioning of the power plants and this power line here that's coming through?
I mean, yeah, I guess I would, because it's a bit of it's a kind of an interesting question there, because there's so many different factors that are kind of boiling into or being baked into those different futures assumptions. because part of it is the retirement, part of it is the future expansion. Then the other part of that is also where do they site those new units that they're forecasting that are gonna come online. Some of them do actually, a certain percentage of them actually go and they'll site them where the retired ones are being, where they're decommissioning one plant and they may basically assume that they're gonna recommission it at the same location. So they may retire a coal plant and then it may transition into or convert it into a natural gas plant.
Okay, and then just another follow-up to that, what is really driving this power line then? If it's not the decommissioning or it's not 100% with, the expected usage, even though there's a lot of Amish moving into the area, so there won't be the usage in this area, so is all this power going somewhere else?
Yeah, so, there is no single one reason for this. It's really a combination of factors that are driving this. And it is that combination of the transition of the, generation fleet. It is that combination of, the expected increase in demand across the region. And it's really those two combined, and each one of those is kind of multi-layered on its ultimate impact there. It is part of, the thing with any transmission grid is that it's all interconnected. And so the kind of it all rises and falls together, is a good way to put it. And so it is facilitating some very large regional transmission or regional flows, between Minnesota and Wisconsin, and it's going to support kind of both states and provide, the flexibility to handle extreme weather. It's going to be able to provide the flexibility to pull and push power, not only, from the west to the east, but even, from the east to the west. And so when the wind isn't blowing or, the sun ain't shining out in Minnesota and the Dakotas, they can easily pull power in, from Illinois and Indiana and Michigan and beyond. And kind of the opposite is also true.
And
So are you
then-
leaving,
Oh,
sorry,
no, go ahead.
are you leaving power here, or are you just passing through, I think was the question.
No, it's all interconnected, so it absolutely is gonna help relieve congestion and pull and allow for additional flows into the area.
And then
What additional flows in the area? I mean, this area is not like expanding, this isn't a hot area. The data centers are where this is actually going. The data centers by Madison and the growth by Madison. That's where this is going. It's not going here, it's going above here. And we have to live with this for somebody else. You're putting it through, again, this is not the area for these gigantic towers. It's not.
It's an area that hasn't been touched for over 1 million years, and you wanna put 200-foot towers through it. Cause sinkholes, kill things that are nowhere else in the earth, live here. To go to Madison and Chicago.
Yeah, but it's still all kind of interconnected, the way that the grid actually operates here. And so it's going, even though the substations are, in the north of Madison and kind of north of Rochester, it all percolates down through, down to the 345 and the 161, and then ultimately down into the distribution system.
So if what you're saying is correct, could you explain to me the reason that you have a 161 and a 765? Within the same tower. So why don't you just run your 165? That's your theory, right? That's my question. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so
Why is there two different pole things?
Yeah, why are there two different voltages? Yeah. So it's a more of a question of efficiency on how to transmit that power, and then also a question of what's the usable voltage by the end consumer. So, into your house, you're running, 240, and so that all has to kind of get then stepped down. And it's a question of cost of the transformations from 765 down to a lower distribution line. And so it's easier to do a transformation from like 161 further down to distribution and then ultimately into the home. So having both kind of facilitates both the larger power transfers and then easier efficiency to transmit into the homes.
Okay, that makes sense. So would it be a true assumption, this is just me assuming, right? Would it be a true assumption to say that the 161 line would be entertaining us, people here in this room, and potentially the 765 would entertain people who are building these big plants or, like it was brought up earlier, data center? Would it be safe to say the 765, or safe to assume that that's feeding those?
It is feeding them and it's feeding you as well, though. So I guess because it's a question of, they're all, I guess I want to stress, they're all interconnected here. And so it's just a question of, what is directly connected to your house. Well, actually you are, connected to the 765, you will be connected to the 765.
You said it's not really stepped down to 161, right? So when the 161 just get stepped down, substations like in Kettle Hollow and the one right over here.
Substations here even adequate to step down from 765?
No.
Is the infrastructure even possessed in here, so it doesn't seem like it's applicable if we can't step it down within our grid. If it's gotta flow hundreds of miles each way, it can be processed down to that current or that voltage that we're using on any kind of input. How is it applicable here?
At 761, it's for long distance, you're gonna feed this area with the 161.
Pushing it through. Doesn't
That's
sound like
what
we even have
you're gonna do.
infrastructure in the area to have an input of 765, is that true? I'm just asking the question, is that fair to say?
Yeah, there's not gonna be any step down
Not
from the
step down.
765 like in this,
Yeah, so it doesn't seem like that really plugs into the grid then.
No, it does.
Okay, so can we go back to the slide at the beginning, maybe, Pat, that explains how transition works?
Yeah, and I guess, I don't know, for me, the important thing to understand is regardless of if it's 765 or if it's 345 or even down to 161, 115, 69 kV, they're all interconnected. And so, this power, if it, you may sit there and go, well, it's just flying over here. It will then go, step down at, Madison or Columbia rather, and or Rochester, and then it's gonna come back in. So you may, be having large transfers, to facilitate the generation from far away, and this transmits it as close as possible, and then it'll step down into the lower voltages and keep stepping down until it reaches your home.
Yeah, could you explain a little bit about this with the congestion, so that now that there's this path where it could go, it doesn't have to go down to 161,
Right.
just surface area, another benefit that it provides to the specific area.
Yeah, and I guess that, when I had said I was gonna kind of unload the 161 and give you some room there, that's exactly what I was kind of referring to is, if you don't do the 765 or you don't do this set of 765s, it's gonna flow on the existing grid, and it's gonna create a bunch of congestion and or overloads onto the system. And those overloads can then, when I said at the top of it was, when we're talking about reliability issues, that's what, a reliability issue is when you've overloaded a line and it's gonna trip itself out, and then those can kind of cascade as you keep losing more and more elements across the system. So without this line, you would see a significant increase on flows on the 161. And so by creating the 765, you do indeed unload the 161 to give more room provide more flexibility to other uses.
I think if we had the space till 8, we're at 8.
We get that, you need the bigger lines, it's the bigger lines through here that is not needed. I mean, you got big ugly freeways that you can put them down, and I know you got a little airport here and a military base. It's easier to find ways around them than go through the most sensitive area in Wisconsin.
I think we are at our.
We get his question.
I had my hand up for a while.
I'm just going by what we.
I came here understanding that I'm not clear now what you're asking us to give feedback on, what type of project. Your slide and much of the discussion tonight have been a point A, Minnesota, point B, Wisconsin transmission line. Now we're starting to discuss what else happens in this area if you get permission to build, if you build. Are we looking at feeder lines going in different directions, helping support the local grid? I mean, what are we being asked to evaluate? Is this a transmission line from point A to point B? Or is it something from during the span of point A to B, have quite a few, I don't know how many, quite a few offsetting lines going in different directions to different communities? That's a different project than point A to point B, in my mind.
So, it's a little of both, I think. So I'll just explain it one more time to see if I answer your question. If I don't, please tell me.
Well, I was reflecting on the PowerPoint slide that basically shows a dark line for your route. It doesn't show projected grids going out. So I'm just trying to clarify.
Yep, and I'll get to that.
What you want us to evaluate.
Yep, I'll get to that. So the point A to point B that's the 765, so the two substations that are on either end, but they go past this project, are North Rochester to Columbia. Columbia is by Portage.
Okay.
That's the 765, but because MISO identified the 161 as the rebuild, then that, we are proposing to double circuit the line, which is already connected to 5 different substations. So that will be feeding the local area, that line that gets rebuilt. Past that, there isn't anything else. So it is point A to point B, but there is also the 161s that are being rebuilt with this in the same location.
So you do not project net new grid lines or feeder lines going off this. You're essentially reinforcing existing lines. Am I understanding?
For this project, yes. I don't know of anything else. That's all this project is.
I just want to understand what you're asking.
One circuit now, there'll be 2 circuits in
Yeah.
the future.
Yep.
Okay.
The existing circuit is at the end of life.
You got it.
So, folks, we are at our 8 o'clock time frame here, so we were gonna conclude it at 8 o'clock. I wanna thank everybody for coming.
Thank you for holding the meeting.
You bet. I'm sorry we couldn't get to everybody's questions here, but, you do have another, 40-some or 50-some questions that from Genoa residents. And I know they all would, and everybody would appreciate, an answer to that.
And we do have the open house tomorrow.
At the, retreat. Can you take one more question? Can you take one more quick question?
Okay, I'm concerned about health problems. What I've read, the potential problems for long-term exposure to powerful electromagnetic fields are headaches, fatigue, stress, sleep disorders, seizures, dizziness, and cognitive issues like memory loss and a high risk of childhood leukemia. I know you said all your safety things said it was okay. The studies that I read, several of them usually say extremely low, little to no risk, low risk, not likely to cause, or generally harmless, or no expected dangers. Well, I think everybody in this room is gonna be living next to this line, and so, for our whole lives, so I think this is very, I don't know, much of a concern. So I wanted to ask, there's 10 of you up there, would you live under this electrical magnetic field with your family with these risks and feel perfectly safe doing that? In your backyard, in your front yard?
So, is this still on? I don't know if I turned it on. Okay, so I think you mean right next to the easement? Is that fair?
Okay, that's fair, but,
Okay.
what I read, you have to be at least 700 to 1,300 feet away from the transmission line. That's the safety guideline, what I read. So a lot of these homes are not that far away.
Sure. I've never seen that guideline, so I can't speak to it, but yes, I would absolutely live next to it.
You would live next to it? How about
Yes.
you?
To be honest, I don't live next to one right now, but I will tell you, every morning I walk along a high voltage transmission line, about 5 miles each way.
Okay, what if you drove machinery back and forth under one of those transmission lines with a defibrillator in your chest?
Yes, there are studies on that as well.
Yes, you can get a very powerful, painful shock. And who knows, it will quick shock on you. So would you live under one, by one, next to one, with your family, raising your babies?
Yeah, and I do have babies, so, yeah, yes, I would, but
Yes,
it's
you
kind of
would?
fair because it's
Okay,
my
Do
livelihood.
you, do any of you,
everybody agree up there?
or live by one?
Okay,
Live by
anybody
a
in the
house by
room
one?
wanna agree to living
But
under
how
one?
close would you guys live? Would it be 126 feet, 700 feet, 1,000 feet from the power line?
I assume you're not right outside the easement.
If you go right outside the easement, are you gonna stay there?
Yeah, that's what I assumed she meant when I answered.
It's like, right, okay?
Likewise.
Okay, folks,
Yeah.
sorry, we're gonna wrap it up.
Yeah, thank you guys, sorry, I ran out of time. Please join us in the open house, so if we didn't answer your questions.